Hey everyone, it's Carisa here from Black Dog School of Yoga, and I am here with the third and final class in our 3-series video that we've been doing, talking about the body as a house. So the first week we talked about the first floor, the legs, and this is the floor of being. The second week we did the second floor, which is arms, torso, up to the mouth, and this is the floor of doing. And then this week is going to integrate all three. We're going to talk a lot about your vision. And the idea is that we have a lifted vision so that we can look forward into our future, so that we can fulfill our potential instead of living in the past. But today we're going to integrate all three floors. So you're going to need a blanket and 2 blocks. If you don't have a blanket, a towel or like a sturdy, thick blanket, not like a soft squishy one will do really well. So towel or thick blanket. Then if you don't have blocks, you can use books. You can use mason jars. You can use anything around your house. The blocks are just going to add a little bit of height today. So we're going to start in a hang practice to go back to the first floor as we work our way up. So the idea is not to live in any of the floors. So it's not like we want to be in our legs all the time or in our, arms all the time or up here floating off into our imagination all the time. The idea is to create a through line so that currency can move. And when you need to go down to your basement, you can go there. When you need to go out into the world and handle things, you can go there. When you need to implement your imagination, when you need to call upon your imagination, you can do that. So the idea in this third and final class is to integrate all three. So fold your blanket or towel, whatever you have, lengthwise like this, so you have a little bit of height. Make sure that your 2 blocks are handy, and then you're going to come and step on the blanket. So the center of the foot, right where the arch is, right at the edge of the blanket, so your toes are off, your heels are on, and then you're going to want to measure hip width distance, so I'll face you guys so you can see. You'll take 2 fists and measure in between your feet. And make sure that you measure the arches, not the bunions or the bony parts sticking out, because those will grow over time. But make sure you have a really good measure right in the arch. And then just set your blocks in front of you and fold. All right. As you come into this, you want a really generous bend of the knees. So as you can see here, my knees are very well bent so that my ribs land on my thighs. This ensures that my low back is well organized. Your kidneys live on your low back, which we've talked a lot about. The adrenals live on top of the kidneys. So all of this is a really good re-energization. And then go ahead and let your head drop down. Right away, find your breath. So finding that nice, deep, throaty breath, pulling the air in through the back of the throat and out. And let the formality of your body, let the formality of your foundation move to the back of your mind as your breath takes the front seat, takes the focus. The breath is the thing that helps move us out of the analytical, engaged thinking mind and moves us into the presence that is the body. So it's very hard to change anything about the body without actually being in it. It's hard when you're disconnected. So we first work with the breath, and then we move into the formality and the framework of the body. And then that gives us the truly integrated experience. And then we can add in the imagination, weaving the breath in through the body. So once you've moved through a few breaths, come up onto fingertips right in front of you and just rock forward and backward. We're going to be here a little while, but don't let that wrap up in the engaged thinking mind, because the mind will take that and we'll get really agitated, start thinking about how long we're going to be here, all that stuff. And the way that we employ the imagination is by letting the thinking mind disengage, so that that deeper place of creativity, inspiration, intuition can come forward and can come forth. So just some gentle rocks forward and backwards so that eventually we can find the center. We go into the opposites. so that we can find the center. We go into the extremes so we can find the center. And then eventually we don't have to go into the extremes so much, and we can just find the center naturally on our own. So make the rocks a little bit smaller until you end up at that center. And you'll notice if you're too far forward on your toes, the backs of your legs engage, so your calves and your hamstrings. But if you sit too far into your heels, then the front sides, the shins, and the quads engage. So you want to find a place right in the center of the foot so that there's stability up through the entire leg. And then crawl forward, crawl your hands forward, leave your legs exactly as they are, and put your hands on the two blocks that are right there in front of you. So even if it's pretty easy to keep your fingertips on the floor, my preference would be for you to have your hands up on blocks and then maybe even fingertips on blocks. This just gives a little bit more air, a little bit more life into the body so that then you can find a back bend. So you lift your tailbone up, melt your heart down so the lower part of your belly really makes good contact with your thighs. Wherever there's contact, there's an ignition of currency, so the currency begins to flow and move. And then always look forward. So today's class is a lot about vision. And we have this tendency to drop our heads and either look up at our bellies like in down dog or look up at our groins, but there's really nothing interesting happening back there. What's interesting is happening out in front of us. It's the same idea that when we're driving in a car, we check the rear view every so often because it gives us good information about what's happening behind us, and we have to be aware of that. But if you were to drive the entire time looking in the rear view, you would crash into anything in front of you pretty quickly. So we go to the past to get information, but we don't stay there. So this entire class, think about keeping your vision forward, and then when your vision comes forward, then you take the round out of the back. So just try this for a minute. Just drop your head down and feel the round happening in your spine, and then lift your head, look up, and feel the round begin to flatten out. Good. And then from here, you're going to walk your blocks in your hands over to the right. I'm running into the wall here a little bit, so I'm just going to modify. But both of your arms should be straight out. And then walk the left hand with the block out a little bit more. You'll notice that your hips are going to want to twist with you. So draw the left hip back in line with the right. Imagine that your hips are on a clock face or on a compass. And you want to keep your right hip to the right at 3 o'clock, your left hip to the left at 9 o'clock. And then your pubic bone forward at 12 or north, and then the tailbone all the way back at 6, or also you can think of that as south, and then give it some breath into the left lungs. Feel the space and the separation throughout the rib cage. One more breath. I know, the legs are burning. Then take it back through center, walk it over to the left to about 10 o'clock. And then walk the right hand with a block with it so it stretches out a little bit more, and then anchor the right hip back to its own side or to 3 o'clock while the left hip comes around to 9 o'clock. So always keeping your hips on that clock face or that compass-like orientation of north, south, east and west. One more breath. And then come back to center, leave your blocks where they are, and then release your head back down. Take your hands back behind you and slide from the middle finger. So the middle finger should go right into the center of the foot, and then cup the heels. Good. Widen the knees until they fit the armpits. So the first thing you need to learn how to do is to fit yourself before you then go out into the world and fit other people. And so you find your first fit in your first floor, in your legs. Your ribs meet your thighs, your hands cup your heels, your knees meet your armpits. And then inhale as you lift through the backs of the legs, and then exhale as you drop the head down. We're almost there, you guys. Let's commit to 4 more breaths here. Inhale, lift the tailbone away from the floor. exhale, draw yourself in a little bit closer. 2 more. I'm going to shut up here so you can just be in your body, in your breath. And then very, very slowly release. Whew. So go ahead and remove the blanket, plant your hands, and then take it back to downward facing dog. And again, just arriving your downward facing dog, no formal measure or formal framework here, just being familiar, getting to know the pose, and then implementing the breath so that you become embodied in the pose, that you actually live in your body, that your thinking mind is not engaged, you're thinking about what you're going to make for dinner or whatever else you might be thinking. Settle into the breath instead. Good, and then let's add some formality to it. So roll forward and find a high plank. In your high plank, make sure that your shoulders are stacked over your wrists and that you roll to your tiptoes so that the heels are really nice and spiked. If I were to put my foot against the wall, the entire sole of the foot would fit on the wall. Or if someone had a block behind my feet, that's how high my heels are lifted. And of course, look forward. And notice how as you look forward, it moves your body forward. Take one more breath, change nothing about the pose, and then take it back, downward facing dog. So you'll hear us a lot in the Black Dog School of Yoga talking about bending the knees. And if you haven't tried it already, just give it a try. Try it on and see how it feels. Bend the knees generously. That frees the pelvis up so then you can lift your tailbone higher into the sky. And then breathe. In today's class, we're also going to be doing a lot of cross-referencing, so that gets the imagination firing. So find your right palm, press into your right palm, and then lift your left hip away from your right palm, creating space diagonally across the body. Then press into your left palm and lift the right hip away, creating space, again, diagonally across the body. And then imagine that where X marks the spot, which is right at the top of the upper back, that you can press through that and melt your heart back towards the mat a little bit more. And then, of course, keep your gaze forward. Ears in line with your biceps. Imagine that you could look through the top of your forehead up to your hands. Good. And then inhale, come forward, look forward, and then exhale, hinge at the hips, take it all the way back. So now we're going to start to work into the second floor after we've employed the stability of the first floor. And just keep taking it forward and back, forward and back. And try to just hinge and unhinge from the hips. So if you look up at the screen, whatever that you're watching, you'll notice that my spine doesn't really do any rounding. So I'm not doing this like rippling through the spine. I'm literally just hinging and unhinging from my hips, folding and unfolding, and the entire time, where's your vision? Forward, forward, forward. Good. Let's take 3, 2, and 1. Come back to downward facing dog. Look forward at your right thumb, step your right foot to your right hand, and then settle the back knee down. Untuck the back toes so the top of the foot is down, and just for a moment, lift the back knee, pressing into the top foot so much so that the knee lifts. Keep that engagement, find a gentle touch down of the knee. Now let's take the block and do a formal measure to make sure that we're at 90 degrees in this front leg. So you're going to take the block, place it back behind your ankle, or your heel rather, and then the block should just slightly touch the calf. So I know that I'm off if I'm too far back and the block is leaning. I know that I'm also off if I'm so far forward that there's a ton of space between the block and my calf. So you want it just lightly touching, and then we're actually going to leave it right there. Tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, and again, go back to that measure of the block. From here, take your arms underneath you, grab for opposite elbows, so ball and mitt fit, and then pull up until you get a little pressure, the arms through the back of the leg, and look forward, find a back bend. So to give this pose a little bit more lift and buoyancy, really spike the back heel, and you'll notice as you do that, the butt goes up. Then make sure that you haven't gone back into your block or too far forward, that again, the calf is just slightly touching the block, and then find your back bend, look forward, stick your tailbone in the sky, melt your heart forward for 3, 2, and 1, release. Plant your hands on the floor, tap your back knee down, and then remove the block. From here, I'm going to switch directions so you guys can see this a little bit better. From here, toe heel your right foot out till it's about 2 o'clock, so like a ballet first position. And then you're going to walk your hands out to 10 o'clock to the other side. The top of the back foot is down, and again, pressing so much that there's little to no weight on the kneecap, so that will preserve your knee. Try to stay up on fingertips through this next series, but if you have to come down on palm, that's okay. Just make sure you're not sinking into your shoulder. The fingertips make the forearms work and make you come out of the shoulder joint a little bit more. Then from here, place your right hand on your knee. Again, ball and mitt fit, and then you're going to twist towards your knee. And really work, especially the left lung, over towards your right thigh. Reorient the hips so that they're at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And the pubic bone is at 12, tailbone is at 6. Then from here, reach the right arm up along your side of your ear. Find the place where your cheek just fits really nicely into the arm. And then you're going to find a little bit of a back bend. So the idea is that you make this arc that is eventually towards your left toes. Then take one more breath and release. Come back through center, plant your hands, tuck your back toes, swing your right leg up, find a three-legged dog. Find a three-legged dog. So bend your left knee a lot, so much so that the bottom of your tummy touches the top of your thigh. And then close the hip, so rotate the outer right hip down. And then lastly, look forward. Good. Take one more breath here, and then exhale, set it down, downward facing dog. And then let's move to the left side. So inhale, lift your left leg high. Exhale, step it through lunge, setting your left foot where your left thumb is. And again, I'll kind of move around so you guys can see a little bit of a better angle here. Tap the back knee down, top of the right foot down, and then press into the top of the foot and lift the knee. That's how much engagement I want you to have as you gently tap the knee down. Take your block and find the same measure, putting the block behind the heel. The calf lightly touches the block, and leave it there for further notice, until further notice. Rest your left ribs on your left thigh, armpit into knee, and then tuck the back toes and lift the hips. Good. And then right away here, find some buoyancy through the hips. You find that buoyancy by lifting and spiking the right heel, and you'll notice that as you do that, your butt lifts. So you put some air in your tires. Then reach your arms underneath you, grabbing for opposite elbows. So do the grip that feels more awkward, making a ball and mitt fit, and then pull up. Again, spike the heel. So every time we come to a pose, we have to reorient. We have to come back to formality. So spiking the heel, noticing if that's dropped. Noticing if the hips have come out of alignment, pulling the left hip back and a right hip forward. Lift your chest, gaze forward, forward, toward your future, toward your potential for 3, 2, and 1. Release. Tap the back knee down once again. Untuck the right toes until the top of the foot is down, and then toe heel the left foot out. So it comes to 10 o'clock or ballet first. And then you're going to walk fingertips over to 2 o'clock. And really let the hips come forward. Pull the pubic bone down. The belly button comes forward. The chest comes forward. And then again, try and stay up on fingertips here. If you come down to your hand, just watch that you don't sink into your shoulder, that you find some lift out of the shoulder joint. This practice is all about creating space in the joints rather than sinking into the joints. If you can, though, stay up on fingertips. Then left hand to your knee, make that ball and mitt fit, and then find your twist. Really get the right lung to move towards the left leg. And then release the left arm up and overhead. Turn your head until your cheek just fits into the arm. And then you're going to start to find a back bend, so you're bending diagonally as if you're trying to reach back and grab the right toes. One more breath. And then release. Plant your hands, toe heel your left foot back into the center, tuck the right toes under, and then lift the left leg, come into a three-legged dog. So you're going to find a generous bend in the right knee, again, that makes some freedom in the pelvis. Find the bottom of the tummy touching the top of the right thigh, so that's how bent my right knee is. Then close the hips by dropping the outer left hip down. Press and stretch away from the floor, away from the palms for 3, 2, and 1. Come back to downward facing dog. And then drop to your knees, take them wide, big toes to touch, sit your hips toward your heels. We've worked quite a bit in the first part of this class, so taking a little bit of a rest. So even in this rest pose, make it a little bit more active. So coming up onto the fingertips if you're not already there, the elbows and forearms should be off the ground, and your ears should land just in line with your biceps, so you're not resting your head all the way down, because then you would take the neck out of the frame and place tension on the neck. So you want the ears right in the frame of your arms. And then from that place, there's a little bit more space for you then to melt your heart down towards the ground. And then we're just going to play with that lift and buoyancy by taking a few cat-cows here. But let the cat-cows come from the push and pull of the shin bones of the first floor of your rooted and grounded stability that gives rise to your ability that eventually gives rise to your vision. So on an inhale, press through your shin bones and the tops of the feet. Lift the butt away from the heels just a little bit and tuck the chin to the chest. And then exhale. Let the hips come back towards the heels and then look forward for your cat pose. So inhale, cow, press through the tops of the feet, lift the butt away from the heels, and then exhale, set the butt down, melt the heart down, and look forward. And then just keep doing that a few more times. But again, every time you lift, it comes from the base of the shins, and that's where you lift up off of. And then you just move. You track your gaze all the way inside, all the way to the belly, all the way to the past. And then you take that information as you move it forward into your future, as you look forward into your potential, as you find a back bend to your potential. Just do that a couple more times. So from here, come up to tabletop and then make your way to downward facing dog. Of course, always measuring through your high plank first, and then bend your knees and lift your hips up towards the sky. Let's come back to our cross reference. So press down through your right hand and lift your left hip, and then press down through the left hand and lift your right hip up. And then from the armpit, stretch down to the center of the palm, and from the armpit, stretch up through the tailbone. And then lastly, from the backs of the knees, stretch up through the sits bones, and from the backs of the knees, melt down through the heels. Not so much so that the heels come all the way down, it's just more of an energetic lengthening. And then inhale as you look up at your right thumb, step your right foot to your right thumb, and then settle the back knee down. Top of the foot comes down, and it's pressing so much that if you wanted to, you could lift your back knee. Keep that level of engagement and settle the back knee down. Then from here, rise on up, bring your arms overhead. Before we go anywhere, let's reorient the hips. So pull your right hip back to its own side as you draw your left hip forward. And then grab your left forearm. Inhale, reach up and side bend over to the right so you get a nice stretch through the front of your left hip here. And then keep pulling over towards the right side and then land with the right elbow to the outside of the knee. So I'm going to flip around so that you guys can see from a different perspective here. So elbow lands to the outside of the knee, make a fist with the left hand, and then the right hand comes on top of that. Again, reorient the hips, pulling the right hip back to its own side, and the left hip comes around forward. Press your right hand down into your left to begin the twist. And really think about your ribs, especially the left one. That's the one that's kind of underneath you, that's a little bit stuck. Think about pulling the left lung around until it meets more of the right thigh. And then see if you can find even more to the twist by taking your right shoulder blade, spinning it around to your left collarbone. And then find your left shoulder blade and spin it around to your right collarbone. And then maybe even the gaze goes up. Find the center of the right foot. Throw the right knee forward so you get more out of your lunge. Twist. Lean back so your head is in line with your tailbone. For 3, 2, and 1, release. Hands reframe the foot, and then let's take it back to a half splits. So lift your toes as you come back, again, always reorienting the hips. Come up onto fingertips or even hands on blocks so you have enough leverage to have a nice flat spine here. Instead of rounding the spine and puffing the kidneys, draw the heart forward. We're in Colorado, so we like to say puff grass, not kidneys. Continually draw the right heel back towards your left knee so that there's a firing of the hamstring. So even though we lengthen, we also want to have some engagement here. Good. And then come forward, replant your hands, take it back, downward facing dog. Inhale as you look forward to your left thumb, and then step your left foot to your thumb, and then settle the back knee down. And again, find that engagement so much so that you could lift the back knee. Keep that engagement through the shin bone and the top of the foot as you settle the back knee down, and then inhale, rise on up. Reorient the hips, pulling the left hip back to its own side. If you think about a clock, it's at 9 o'clock. Right hip at its own side is at 3 o'clock. Grab for the right forearm, inhale, reach up, and then side bend over to the left. Getting a nice deep stretch through the front of the right hip. And then continue pulling on that path. I'm going to stay this way so you get a different perspective now from the back side. Right elbow to the outside of your knee. Make a fist with your right hand and place your left hand around that. And then press your left hand down into your right to begin the twist. And then work the lungs here. So instead of thinking shoulders or anything else, think from organs. So think from your lungs, like you're trying to get your right lung to come through the frame of your arms a little bit more towards the left thigh. And then work the twist even more by finding your left shoulder blade, move it around to your right collarbone. And then from your right shoulder blade, move that around to your left collarbone, and then maybe that even takes your gaze up towards the ceiling. But don't forget about your legs because they're your stability. So your stability, remember, gives rise to your ability, which gives rise to your vision. So press into the center of the left foot, throw the left knee forward, continue your twist, lean back until your head is in line with your tailbone for 3, 2, and 1, release. Reframe the left foot and then take it back for your half splits. Ardha Hanumanasana, again, up on fingertips or preferably fingertips on blocks or whatever props that you have. Reorient the hips always. I know I sound like a broken record, but the orientation of the hips realigns everything else in the body. So that's a really great place to start. And then energetically drag the heel back against your sticky mat. so that your left hamstring fires. So we're stretching as well as strengthening. And then look out, look forward. Release, come forward, plant your hands, tuck your toes, come to downward facing dog. On an inhale, come forward to high plank. And then to open up the front of the hips, let's go to a tucked out up dog. So leave your toes tucked. Start to lower the hips, but that means your legs have to stay crazy engaged. And then pull your lungs through the frame of your arm as you take your gaze up. So if you have floppy legs and disengage them, it dumps right into your low back. So the legs have to be crazy active and engaged. And then imagine you had a string attached to your tailbone. Lift it up first as you come back to downward facing dog, always bending the knees. And then work through that a few times. Inhale forward, tuck-toed up dog. Lungs come through, vision goes up. Exhale, lift from the hips, down dog. One more time. Inhale forward. And exhale back, down dog. All right, inhale, look to your right thumb, lunge. This is the last lunging thing that we're gonna do. Untuck the back toes. Again, massive engagement through the left shin, left toes. Hook the hands, so not an interlace, but a hook like this of the forefingers, and then the thumb curls around. And then take your hands back behind your head so that the pinky side of the hand that's down is touching the occipital ridge. Leave your right ribs on your thighs, and then simply just lift your vision. That's all you have to do here, is lift your vision to begin the back bend. Find the center of the right foot, press it down. Draw your right knee back in line with your left hip so that they're out to their own sides. And then start to lift up by way of pressing your head into your hands so you're in a full back bend. Let the pubic bone drop down towards the floor. And then your sternum bone goes forward and your head goes back into your hands. So we're moving into the back bend, but by way of potentiating into the future and lifting our vision up instead of bending all the way back into our past. That doesn't really serve us. One more inhale breath here. And then exhale, release. Whew. Plant your hands, take it back, down dog. Let's cycle through a few tuck-toed up dogs 3 times. Inhale, roll it forward. Drop the hips, lungs come through, lift the vision, and then back. 2 more times. Inhale forward. Exhale back. Last one. And land back in downward facing dog. Inhale, look forward toward your left thumb. Step your left foot in a lunge. Tap the back knee down. Nice flush top of the foot towards the floor. Shin bone active and engaged. Then hook the hands opposite way. The pinky side rests right into the occipital ridge. Left ribs land on your left thigh. And then to initiate the back bend, to initiate your travel into your potential, just lift your vision. That's all it takes. Press your head into your hands. Leave your ribs on your thighs. Draw the left hip back and right hip forward, and then continue along the journey, pressing your head into your hands to come all the way up. Draw the elbows out wide. You'll get a nice little pec stretch here as a bonus. But remember, this vision, this back bend comes from the stability of our legs. So find the center of the left foot, draw the left knee forward, and then drop the pubic bone down, belly button forward, sternum bone forward. 3, 2, and 1, release. Plant your hands, tuck the back toes, downward facing dog. All right. A couple more back bends and then we'll call it good. We'll cool it down. So bring your feet forward as you bring your hands back so you meet in the middle of the mat. Take 2 fists and measure in between the feet, not at the bunion part, but at the arch part. Rest your ribs on your thighs, widen your knees into your armpits, and just let your head dangle here for a moment. Release any tension through the neck, through the upper back, your traps. Then from here, let's take an eagle wrap. So wrap your right arm underneath your left. Grab for the left fist if you can, or the left wrist if you can, and then make a fist with that left hand. Begin to sit your butt back like you're coming into chair pose, and then draw the elbows forward, forward, forward until maybe the triceps come parallel to the earth. You throw the chin forward into the crook of the elbow. And then we'll initiate a back bend into standing, but by way of throwing the fists up. So throw the fists up towards the ceiling, and then let that lead you to stand all the way up, and then come all the way back into a back bend. So gentle bend in the knees, do not lock out the knees. Throw the hips forward over the knees. Lift up through the elbows to come out of your hips, and then punch the fists back so the forearms come parallel to the ceiling. One more inhale. And then exhale, start the descent. So bend your butt, sit back into chair pose. Pause halfway, and then forward fold all the way down. Whew. Ton of effort, ton of heat. You guys can hear me breathing really heavily. So all of that heat flushes through the joints, which we've opened up, flushing out all disease and toxins and viruses and all that good stuff that likes to hang out, especially in our joint space. Drop the head down, even out the breath. All right, well, we got another side, you guys. So left arm underneath the right, grab at the wrist again if you can, and then make a fist with that right hand. Start to sit the butt back like you're coming into chair pose, and then draw the elbows forward, forward, forward. Maybe so much so that the triceps come parallel to the earth, and then throw your chin forward into the crook of your elbow. Then let the back bend originate from the fist. So punch the fist up as you come up a little bit more upright, and then straighten your legs and take it all the way back. Again, gentle bend in the knees. Throw the hips forward so they come over the ankles. Lift the elbows up so you come out of your waist, and then punch the fist back towards the back of the room. One more inhale. And then exhale. Slowly come back, setting the butt back, chair pose. Pause halfway, and then continue on your journey all the way down. Release the arms. Woo. Drop your head and even out your breath. And really let your head dangle. Maybe shake yes, shake no. All right, last pose. So slowly start to come all the way up, and then come all the way up to standing. So we're going to take a dancer as our last pose. If you guys have a wall nearby, this is really nice. And don't think of the wall as a crutch, but rather think of the wall as scaffolding. So it's there for your support as you build your foundation. And then once the foundation is built and you feel steady, then you take the scaffolding away, just exactly like when you build a building. So come to stand on your left foot. And we're going to do a little bit of work here. So I'm going to place my right hand on the wall, tiptoes on the left foot, and standing on the right. And then I want you to look down and find your right big toe. And then imagine that you could stretch it. It's going to be more of an imagination thing, but imagine you could stretch it away to your right outer heel. Then find the pinky toe and imagine you could stretch it to the inner heel. And then find where X marks the spot and press down. That's already going to start to build the foundation. If you don't have your feet, you don't got nothing. Right hand on the wall, bend the left knee, kick, and grab for the outside edge of the foot, and then you can take your right hand all the way up in the wall. So it's really nice here because now I can play. I have my hand on the wall as scaffolding, and then I can start to build my foundation, finding the center of my right foot again, drawing the knees together, and then reorienting the hips. Always reorienting the hips, right hip back, left hip forward. And then you just begin the kick. Kick your foot into your hand. Make yourself like a bow and arrow. So the more you kick back, the more that informs your belly to come forward and your sternum bone to come forward. Maybe you take your hand away from the wall, maybe not. And then rise your vision up to where the wall meets the ceiling. Kick, gentle bend in the right knee. 3, 2, and 1, release. Bring the knees back together and then slowly come out. Switch sides. So again, come up onto your right tiptoes and then anchor through your left foot so we can find the foundation. So look down, find your left big toe. Use your imagination to stretch it away from your outer heel, diagonally across the foot. Find your pinky toe, stretch diagonally to the inner heel. And then imagine that those 2 points could intersect, and where X marks the spot directly in the center of the foot, you press down to lift up. Hand on the wall, kick your right knee, and grab for the outside edge of the foot. Then from here, draw the knees together, reorient the hips so they're not cattywampus, they're straight forward. And then begin to kick your foot into your hands. As you do, gentle bend in the knees. Don't lock out your knees. That creates rigidity in your pelvis. If you bend the knee just slightly, then you can find more space in your pelvis. Imagine you're like a bow and arrow, so as you're loading it and creating tension, the front of your body is creating a beautiful arc. Belly button comes forward, sternum bone forward, and then lift your gaze to where the wall meets the ceiling. So the rise of the legs gives the stability for the arms and the torso, and then that gives stability and foundation for the vision to lift. 3, 2, and 1. Release. Come all the way back down. Take an inhale breath. Just let your arms dangle by your side. Close your eyes. Feel the movement of the energy in your body. So maybe there's some tingling sensation settling down from the head. Maybe there's a rising or lifting sensation up from the feet. Maybe there's no awareness because you're just super tired from this class, and that's okay too. But at the very least, connect in with your breath. And then just keep your eyes closed as you reach your arms overhead. And then keep your eyes closed as you bend your knees and slowly dive all the way to the floor, coming back to a fold. Plant your hands and step it back. Downward facing dog. Last downward facing dog here. Bend your knees, lift your tailbone. And then go ahead and settle down to your knees. Make sure that you have your blocks handy and also your blanket. So we're going to take a little twist before we head to our pranayama till we end class in our breath work. So you're going to have one of your blocks back behind you, extend your left leg, pick your right foot up, hop it over, and make sure that the right toes are still pointing forward, that they're not turned out at any kind of angle. And then from here, you can either wrap the arm around the knee or take your elbow to the outside of the knee. I'm going to stay with my arm just wrapped around my knee, and then block comes back behind you. I like having this block because I can grab it and imagine that I'm pushing it forward to find leverage to twist. The key to twist, long spines. So roll forward to your pubic bone so you can get that length. Remember, puff grass, not kidneys. And then start to turn. I'm also not endorsing any kind of drug usage. Let that be known. Spin from your left shoulder blade to your right collarbone, and then your right shoulder blade to your left collarbone. Oh, so wonderful. And then release. Take it to the other side. Right leg long, hop your left foot over, point the toes so they're forward, and then wrap your arm around the knee or take your elbow to the outside of the knee, either way, and then twist. So notice if you're rounding into your tailbone, it's really hard to get any kind of leverage for the twist. And then where's my vision? It's just straight forward. I can't really move it. I mean, I can strain my neck, but we want the spin of the vision to come all the way down here from the hips. So rock forward to the pubic bone, hand on the block, and push it forward against the sticky mat to get leverage to turn. And then, all of a sudden you have the freedom to take your vision all around. And the idea with vision is we want to have a 360-degree view. 360-degree view means that we make ourselves spherical in nature, and when you drop a ball, it bounces right back up. So we're building resiliency. Wonderful, and then release. All right, you guys, Let's do a little pranayama, a little breath work, and then we'll end. So find a nice, tall, lifted, like throne for you to do your pranayama. I'm going to turn around so you guys can see my setup. Take a block in virasana just in between the ankles, and then I like even more height, so I take a block and stick it under that. So find whatever setup. You can add more blocks, you can do blankets, you can do whatever you like. But this should be a pretty stable pose, like you feel like you could be here. We're not going to be here for that long, but you could be here for an hour if you wanted to. Reach down, grab the flesh of your knee, lift it up so that it comes untucked. And then reach around, grab for the butt, roll it around, and push the inner thigh down. So that way you get some nice wide space in the sacrum. And you already start to feel a really lovely release in the low back. Okay. So rock forward onto your pubic bone so you find your perineum, the opening or the space between the sex organs and the anus. And then you pull back to the right sits bone and left sits bone. And then you have a triangle of perineum, right sit bone, left sits bone. And that's your foundation. That's your great plug into the socket of the earth. From there, rise up. There's a gentle lift of the lungs up and forward, not so much so that you thrust your chest forward, but just a gentle rise. And then your shoulder blades naturally just organize themselves down the back. Lift your gaze if your eyes were open to where the wall meets the ceiling. You feel really nice and lifted and tall. Good. And then we're going to do one breath for the first floor, one breath for the second floor, and then final breath for the third floor. So the first floor breath is just going to be a simple cat-cow pumping back and forth. So on the inhale, you're going to come forward, and the exhale, you're going to go back. And at first, take it as slow as you would like, and you can get your head in the game so that your vision comes all the way down, and then your vision comes all the way up. And then you're going to add the breath, which is Bhastrika breath. That's a really sharp inhale through the nose when you come forward, sharp exhale through the nose when you go back. So sounds like this. Good. And then here at Black Dog School of Yoga, we like to really pump things up in our pranayama because we like the fire to rise so that eventually we can catch the rain, catch the water, catch the grace. But we can't have grace without fire, right? We reap what we sow. If we don't plant any seeds, then we're not going to have a harvest. So we have to get the fire going. We have to stoke from the very basement, which is where all of our plumbing and electric and our pilot light is. You don't have your heater in the attic, you have your heater in the basement because the heat rises. Good. And then you start to take the rocks in the chest and the head a little bit smaller and just take it through the pelvis, because then you find you can speed things up a little bit faster. So then you're in, out, in, out, in, out. Good. And the entire time, even though we're moving from the pelvis, the stability is coming from even further below that. So as you're rocking forward and back and pumping the breath, you're finding the stability from the tops of the feet pressing down and the shin bones pressing down. And I'm pressing down so much so that I have a tiny little bit of a lift in the butt so that I have even more space for my pelvis to move. Good. Keep going. We're on for the last 25. 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come to center. Hook your right thumb over your left with your palms face forward and take your arms overhead. Squeeze your biceps by your ears and then press down into your shin bones and the tops of the feet so much so that you get a little bit of a lift and a bounce through the legs. Lift up, up, up. Then take a deep breath in. 3 sips of air through the mouth. Hold full. So the lungs are full, the torso is full. Squeeze from the perineum. Like a little pressure cooker, feel all of the air rising up, 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 up. And then big exhale, out the crown of the head. Let your arms come down. Rest your hands in your lap, palms face up. And each time we come back to this center, this is where we're catching the grace of our effort. Fire rises and the rain rains down. All right, second floor, we're going to go back to that hook of the hands, Doesn't matter which hand is on top. Inhale as you spin to the left, exhale as you spin to the right. Inhale left, exhale right. And then we're going back to that same Bhastrika breathing, so that inhale, exhale sharply through the nose. Good. Continue like that, and make sure that as you spin, you're spinning the entire head. So not just your arms are going or your torso, but that you're also getting the head into the game, that you're getting the vision into the game. Now we've arrived at the second floor, right? We've opened our body up during asana. We've opened up all the channels through the joints, and now we're just lifting the energy so that it goes eventually all the way to vision, which is the third breath that we'll do. Good. As you move to the left, your left arm pulls. As you move to the right, your right arm pulls. And we're on for last 20. Keep going. As we spin around, this is a spin of time. Right on the liver, which is the liver's on our right side, and the gallbladder sits on top of that. And all of that processes our enzymes and fats and stores bile and all of that good stuff. So it's really good for the digestion. Good. Last 10. 5,